Hi, Abhinav.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Thank you so much for coming.
Pleasure meeting you. This is a very exciting space right here. We are seeing robots moving right here, just behind us. So, tell us what this guy is trying to do here.
This is like a setup which we have built for, making our own food for the lab.
Making your own food?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Is this your cook right here?
This will become our cook. We'll train it to be a cook, and the idea is simple. So many humans just are performing the simple tasks of cooking.
Okay.
And what if we could teach robots some of those tasks which are very repeatable, and those can basically help all of us become more productive.
Okay.
And this is running just some test scenarios here. We've done some stuff like frying.
Okay.
But yeah, this would be able to do a lot more things in the future.
Okay. So cooking is one of them. What are the other things that this can do?
This can paint objects. It can inspect objects.
Okay.
You can put a camera, and you can put any kind of tool here. So imagine I'll hold it tool like a drill or
right.
a paint gun,
right,
or a camera. Any of those things you can put here.
Right.
You can attach it here. This is called the end of arm tooling, and you can make it do that.
Yeah.
It can perform one repeatable actions, or it can take actions based on what it needs to do. The thing, imagine it to be a computer which has a hand, and you can program it to do tasks.
Very interesting. So I'm not sure how to look at it. Should I be excited or should I be worried?
You should be excited. Come on.
Awesome. And this is entirely made in India, right?
This is entirely made in India. There are components which we are buying from abroad, but we assemble it right here in Noida, and then it's sold off in different parts of the world, both in US and in India. We are going to send this off to another parts of the world to showing it off. Yeah.
That's awesome. We'll talk a lot more about it in detail when we go to your place in your office and sit there and record all the things, the story behind this, what made you solve this problem, and all of that stuff. So Let's go there.
Oh yeah. Imagine a world where humans are free to work on anything which their heart desires. My name is Abhinav. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Orangewood Labs. I love building stuff. As a child, I would take toys apart and then make new toys out of them. I still tend to do that. One of my life's dreams is to enable people, enable every builder who's out there. And it kind of comes from my own experiences. I started my first company when I was 22. I was building a truck for rural areas. Most of rural India back in the day was not connected. They did not have any transportation options. I could see those problems. I could see, individual builders not having enough tools, not having enough help. If you have to do certain things, you have to wait for another human to come and help you out somehow, or have a lot more people to come and help you out. And a lot of times that's not feasible. It kind of becomes very clear that we will need some kind of robot, some automation to help all these individual builders or help these small startups to build their next thing, build the next set of products. And that kind of led us to building what Orangewood is. Building any hardware is hard. Most manufacturing is just humans toiling away their lives on an assembly line. A significant chunk of humanity is just doing things which could have been automated years ago. No one wants to do these jobs. No one aspires to become a factory worker. It's like spending their lives in a prison. A robot arm is like a computer with a hand. You can program it to do physical tasks. There are billions of computers, but not enough robot arms. It's because the robot arms are expensive and they are very, very difficult to program. We at Orangewood are building world's most affordable robotic arm and the easiest to program. You could literally tell the robot to do something in natural language and the robot does that. The only language you need to know is the one you already know.
All right, Abhinav, good to see you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for coming here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and it's always good to visit such a facility wherein you're having robots all around. The first thing I entered, I noticed, okay, there are robots here, and it's like the Indian version of a SpaceX factory visit.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we're very excited by, I think even most of us who work here were really excited about the future and, what it looks like. And this idea that you can instruct a machine to do what you want to do, it's like truly magical.
Exactly, very inspiring for anyone visiting here. And that's the way how innovation should move, and I hope to see more startups innovating in the deep tech space as well. India is more known for SaaS innovation in the service sector, but this is something that I would like, and everyone would like to see more of. So thank you for doing this. And to start things off, can we first have your background story, how you started getting into this industry, because this is a kind of technical space, not everyone can get in and start doing stuff. So tell us your story.
Oh boy. Okay. So I was really into cars and automobiles when I was growing up. And this was something, which I thought I'll be doing like for most of my life. I was so intrigued by things. I had like a very small space in my home which I used to call my lab, but it was just like a closet, a small closet where I used to keep all my stuff and I would tinker around. Then during my time in college, I was doing mechanical engineering, and I'm a mechanical engineering graduate. And in my final year, there was this competition called Baja SE, BAJA, but pronounced as Baja SE, based on the Baja region of North America.
Okay.
And where I was with the team of students, we basically built together a car.
Okay.
It was for a competition, and it kind of gave me the chance as a student to actually use my skills or whatever I was learning in school or in those classrooms to actually go and build something.
Right.
And what I understood, like most of the students were not doing that, right? Like if you're studying mechanical engineering or electrical engineering, I think the CS people actually get to build the stuff which they study in classrooms,
right.
But rest of us don't really get to do that anymore. And we got a chance to do that, and we actually made like the first 4-wheel drive vehicle for that in India for that competition. Moving forward, I was working for first for this company called ICAT. It's a government organization which a very large part of its job is to certify vehicles before they get onto the roads. They also make standards. I was doing like some R&D internship there, and then post that I was working for this company called Sonakoyo Steering Systems Limited. And this was in 2008, and I remember the time, I think it was around the same time, back in 2008.
Okay.
Where there were talks of like huge layoffs which had to happen for that company to survive. And I was getting like really bored there. Like it was, I think they taught me everything which I had to learn. A lot of it was how to handle office politics.
Right.
Apart from the great work which they were doing, I got to learn a lot of things, how to do things, how to think from the first principles.
Exactly.
Elon Musk also talks about that in his book, called something like, now he calls it like the idiot index, where if you have something which, costs like maybe, $1 and it's being sold for $50, the manufacturing process itself is very inefficient.
Right.
And, like my job used to be like, how do I reduce the cost reduce the cost of this rivet, which comes to our factory, from, let's say, 28 cents to 7 cents.
Got it.
And that kind of led me into like this path where I was trying to figure out all the time, like, okay, how can we reduce the cost of this? Or is it even possible? Or is this optimized?
Right.
Or can you make it in a different way?
Right.
This was like this thing which was keep going on in my head. And I think by the time I left Sonakoyo, it was very clear that I wanted to do something else. One of the opportunities which came at the time to me was, there are these vehicles which are called Jugars in North India.
Yeah.
There's like this pump, like this truck-looking thing which has a pumps engine, like the agriculture pumps engine. Right. And then rest of the things are made out of, structural elements. You'll probably use it in your home.
Right.
And structural steel, and then they just weld it together to make a truck kind of a thing.
Right.
And in rural areas, back in the day, like this is 2008, I saw them being used for everything, like from sending their children to school, then, taking their cattle to the market, then taking their produce, like agricultural produce, to the market,
right.
or even ferrying people around. And I was intrigued, one, and then second, this thing was, hey, can I make this efficient? Like, because I saw a lot of inefficiencies, a lot of things which they were doing which were wrong from the automobile safety point of view. And then I questioned myself, okay, if this is working for them, like, who am I to, like, go and intervene? But then I realized, after talking to some of these guys, that the biggest problem they face is the fact that they were not legalized.
Right.
This is like the biggest investment these farmers or whatever they were doing before, they made, like maybe 5 years of savings. They buy this unit. I think at that time it was maybe around $2,000 or like 1.5 lakh rupees.
Okay.
They would buy this, and then they don't have any proof that they own this.
Okay.
And not having property rights kind of makes it very easy for the police to confiscate it, which happens a lot of times.
Exactly.
If it gets into an accident, it kind of becomes a criminal liability for the person. And there are like many such cases. So this was one problem. And the second was like, it kind of generally showed how, and it would break often, so all sort of problem. But then it still helped people to, like, it was still better than having a horse.
Right.
And I mean, for me, I was like in a crossroads, I was very clear that, okay, like in college, I was very clear that, hey, I'll go into motorsports.
Okay.
Like Formula 1, I was so crazy about.
Amazing.
I was pretty clear, and, I was clear that, okay, masters in UK, that's where I think there are a few universities which offer those kind of specific courses. I was thinking about that, and then maybe like work 1 or 2 years and then go there and, do my masters.
Right.
Get into motorsports. And then, after seeing this thing and after talking to some of these guys, I was very clear that, okay, there can be two things. 20 years down the line, it would look like if, I have saved like maybe 1 second from any of the Formula 1 teams lap time, that not even 1 second, like maybe half a second, that would be my biggest achievement for 20 years.
Right.
Versus, what if I use some of my skills to improve what these people are doing?
Exactly.
And then, actually make an impact. Because transportation is one of those foundational aspects of any kind of civilization. Every civilization which we see right now has flourished because of maybe, they were around a river.
Right.
Right? Or any kind of water body. And water body basically meant you can transport goods around very quickly.
Exactly.
But a lot of people who are living in rural areas, they don't have this option. Either they did not have a road, or the road was bad, or they did not have transportation option. So yeah, this was like, okay, my mission is aligned. And we started, me and 2 more guys as co-founders, we started a company which is called Evomo. And and when the time came to actually move to this city, Ahmedabad, we got incubated at NID Ahmedabad at the time.
Okay.
And so this was 2010. We spent like almost a year in research to understand, what needs to be done. And then post that, in 2010, when there was time to actually go to Ahmedabad, both of those guys kind of left.
Okay.
So I was alone. It was like very heartbreaking at the time. But then I was like, dude, I have to do this on my own. Like,
right.
And I have this philosophy that if you need to take those steps, like even if you do not know how hard it is, you need to take those first steps before universe kind of comes and helps you out.
Very true.
And I've seen this kind of repeating again and again. Like, this is truly magical in a way that such things happen. And I will share some of those stories with you and, how things have happened for us. But yeah, I mean, this is a philosophy which kind of live by. I don't know if it might be foolish as well, but people do that. People tend to do that. They want to help you out, or rather, the universe kind of helps you out in achieving certain goals. Yeah. And so, okay. So I moved to Ahmedabad, spent some time there to build a prototype. It took almost 1.5 years to build it. There were a lot of other issues. I think this is something which, I found like it was really hard with the university incubator model to actually get anything done, because you're kind of forcing the same bureaucracies which exist in Indian universities on startups. And startups are supposed to be fast. You need to maybe like spend some money and then, actually get things done, versus you're just trying to live off a stipend. That never really works, especially in something where you're building something hard. And in my case, it was a truck for rural areas. And so I think by 2012, we had a prototype which was working, and then we kind of became clear that, okay, yes, this is good. And we started showing it off, and we were trying to raise money around that. And then kind of reality set in. It was very, very hard to raise money for something of this sort.
Right.
And I feel just running around, trying to get investments, and it wasn't like very fair. This is what I believe. And I did not know till the time like how angel investment should be happening, till the time, we were like post demo day at Y Combinator.
Okay.
That was in winter of 2018. We'll get to that part.
Right.
And so I remember at the time, somewhere around 2014, I had decided to shut down my company. It was extremely hard. It was so hard, like, you're probably killing your child with your own hands.
Very true, very true.
And I remember, like, I was alone in a workshop, you would get space, right, in different places. So I had, like, a lot of space, and I had, like, a truck it was as big as this part. And I had, like, loads of tools which we had to buy to build that truck.
Exactly.
But then, we couldn't, like, finish. We had, some people who had seen this truck, they came and, they used to, like, travel to Ahmedabad just to come and see it.
Beautiful.
Right, and then there were times when I would get calls, hey, I want to buy the other Tata truck, but it's expensive.
Okay.
When is your coming? And I had to tell them that, yeah, boss, it's not going to happen. We have to shut down.
So your truck was as big as the normal trucks, or how was it different from the other trucks?
It looks like a large size SUV, like a Fortuner.
Okay.
We have like a comparison which we did, but it had like a very, very small engine.
Okay.
It was supposed to be going at like 30 kilometers an hour on a rural road, but it was also an off-roader. It had like a very good suspension system.
Okay.
So I remember like at the time, and it was almost at a point where we needed like some more money to put in. I'd already exhausted. Like, I was one of those kids who would never ask for a loan before, like, from my friends. I've never done that. There's probably one of those kids, if there are like 5 kids going to a school canteen, there's one person who ends up paying the most. I was one of those guys. I was probably very naive. But yes, I'd taken loans from my friends. I asked everyone for money because it was all like for my survival. I remember the time when I was living for like 3,000 rupees in Ahmedabad. My rent was, I think, 2,000 rupees. I was sharing my room with like, I think 5 NID students at the time. And I used to substitute, like, and my monthly budget for food was like, my budget for food was 50 rupees a day.
Okay.
So that meant, I would, like, half of my calories were coming from bananas. So, because it was 10 rupees for 6 bananas, so I would like eat 6 bananas a day so that I keep my calorie count up.
Exactly.
Yeah. The funny thing was, like, because I was like, life kind of gifts you. Like, if you're going, if there are things too hard for you, something which happens. So I used, like, every time I would go buy 6 bananas, they would like the vendor would give me 1 more banana, and that was like the joy of the day, right? Like, it's one of those things which I keep remembering, right? Like, okay, people will help you out, something will happen.
Yeah. And
there would be days where nothing would happen. I would try very hard, like talking to people, talking to more and more investors. It was very, very hard at the time. And then around 2014, I decided, okay, I cannot find more money now. No matter how hard I'm trying, the company is not growing. And if there was a graph, like on x-axis and y-axis on my growth and the company growth, I'm not growing, the company is not growing, I'm kind of stuck. So, and
Exactly.
like for me, in my 20s, I was very idealistic. I thought, yeah, if I solve this, like even if I go through so many problems, there are other people who are going through more problems.
Right.
If I solve this, it actually changes for them forever.
Right.
And yeah, I had to like shut things down for, I think, did not have like 1.5 lakh rupees for building the next prototype. I was trying very hard to get it, but
Right.
I was done. I did not have any money left. I'd exhausted all my resources.
Yeah.
But after that, I applied for Y Combinator
Okay.
with 2 more friends.
Okay. For the same startup, right?
With the same startup, and my idea was, okay, I shut it down here in India.
Okay.
I'll still build vehicles for rural areas, not just India,
Okay.
but I'll do it in some other geography.
Okay.
And I was hearing all these stories about, the Bay Area and Silicon Valley and how people are actually more risk-taking.
Yep.
So I wanted to give it a try, and Y Combinator was giving like $120,000.
Yep.
And that seemed like such a great deal. So got an interview call. That was the first time I went to US. And to my surprise, I'm not an alien for the first time in my life.
Right.
The problem was, and especially with that place, I'm not going to say that, this is the whole America. It's,
Right.
Though a lot of parts have, I think one of the things which they are able to do, which we have not been able to do for a very long time, is backing their innovators in a very good way.
Exactly. Right.
But Bay Area is very special because so many people are risk-taking, and they've seen this compounding over the years, right? Every person who has lived there for a while has made some angel investments or knows someone who has made an angel investment which has grown to like crazy.
Right.
And, it was very different for us. For me, it was like how is this even possible?
Right.
Like, people are ready to give you money just by telling you, when you tell your story, and
Exactly. Right.
they get inspired. And we didn't get into Y Combinator. We got to the interview, but then did not get selected. And post that, I was able to meet people.
Okay.
Like, meeting I was able to meet the CEO of Autodesk, like a Fortune 500 company, but
Right.
it was very different for me. Over here, you don't get to do that.
Right.
But over there, and it was such an informal conversation, right? Like, he was just trying to understand what we were doing and, how he really liked our story, and then just referred us to corp development, which obviously did not happen beyond a point. But then I really liked the fact that, as a very senior person in our organization, loved what we were doing.
Right.
And like I said, I did not feel like an alien for the first time in my life, where I'm trying to be very ambitious, trying to build a car company from scratch, which hasn't happened for a very long time. And but then post that, I think I was really burnt out, and I decided to quit.
Okay.
I decided to shut it down. Came back to India, was consulting for a while.
Okay.
I think I was depressed as well, but I did not know at the time. There are times when you don't. It seemed as if I've lost meaning.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, I would have taken better care of myself. It was one of those things like, my upbringing, my middle class upbringing was trying to stop me from doing these things. I did all of that.
Yeah.
And fell on the part which they warned, which would happen.
Yeah.
And all of those things happened.
Yeah.
But I feel that I'm more myself because of those experiences. Right? Like, what happens when you go homeless?
Right.
Right. I have been homeless. There are times when I did not have money for food.
Yeah.
And, you decide to buy a part instead of buying food.
Yeah.
And, but yes, you would always find people who are coming, you'll always find the second or the third crazy person, or even the people who will follow you to anywhere.
Right.
Which is crazy. Right. And it kind of gives you a better understanding of the world, or even India, right? We want to do crazy shit. Like,
Exactly.
let us build. Let us fucking build.
Exactly.
And this is what I feel, people like me are able to kind of spark that imagination that it's fine, it's okay to risk everything and start building.
Exactly. I think that's very needed, especially in the Indian startup ecosystem. We need to see truly innovative startups coming up, Deeptech and stuff. And I'm glad that you're doing this right now. So we'll get into the emotional part of the story as well later on in the conversation. of how you tackle that very difficult phase, or maybe the worst that can happen to a founder that happened with you, and now you have the courage to start up again, and now you're building Orangewood Labs. So would love to understand, what are you trying to accomplish here? It's, I think, a significantly different mission from that, but also somewhat related. So tell us about what you're building here and what's the problem that you're solving here.
So Orangewood exists to help humanity push forward in a way that, okay, so the way to think about this is our hands are what has helped humanity become humans.
Right.
We have the ability to build tools, and that has helped our brains to develop in a way, right? The brains have evolved because we had hands. We work with tools. And this current level of civilization has happened because we had hands in the first place.
Very true.
Compared to, some of our other cousins who are still like hanging from trees, the monkeys, chimpanzees, and other species. But we've been able to do this. And we've been able to achieve this because of our hands.
Right.
But now our civilization has also reached to a point where we don't have enough hands. We don't have enough young people who want to work with their hands to do more things.
Okay.
We are at a point where labor should have become a choice. It's not true today.
Yeah.
But it should have become a choice. And then we see in some of the developed nations like Japan and some parts of US, it's very, very hard to find people who can do anything with their hands.
Right.
And that's where we want to come in. We want to help humanity push forwards with more hands. And what we say is like more hands per human or more hands for humanity. And this is like the mission of the company. The way we do it is by making one very affordable robot arms.
Okay.
And the second part is making them as easy to program as, talking to another human.
Awesome.
So these are the two areas which we are working on, in very high level.
Absolutely. Yeah, we just saw them earlier today, the robots. So what are these robots actually capable of doing? And what all are the industries that can kind of employ these robots, maybe at the factory floor or at different places? What all can these robots do?
So, like from business perspective, we are very focused on few use cases.
Okay.
The robots can actually do a lot more, but what we realize is the state of AI is not there yet. Like we don't have what we call as the robot AGI, where you could tell robot to do anything and has like a human level or human level intelligence to perform that task. We're not there yet. But for certain use cases, which are a little bit narrower, we can do that right now.
Right.
So right now, we can tell a robot, like one of our robots, in natural language to paint a surface. And like by looking at it, and it will be able to do that.
Right.
So we have achieved that at a lab level, and we have basically deployed parts of it on a factory floor.
Right.
From like an industrial perspective, we are doing inspection, visual inspection, spray painting. There's something called pick and place. Pick and place basically means you pick an object from one part and then put it somewhere else.
Right.
But then this pick and place has like a lot of subdivisions. You can literally like make bread, like put the dough in the oven, open the door of the oven, press a button, and then wait for 30 seconds or whatever, and then put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
All of these activities we are able to do, and we can do it in a way which is very, very easy to for the robot to do.
Right. Yeah, that's very interesting, and I've seen some very interesting videos that you keep posting on your social media. So there was this Diwali, the Indian festival, the biggest Indian festival there. So robots doing puja with those diyas in their hands, and that was incredible to see, right? And other activities as well. I think on your birthday there was a robot cutting the cake, right? So that was pretty cool stuff right there. And, videos of robots painting cylinders. So all types of stuff they're able to do. Even sensitive things like maybe holding a diya is not that easy, right? If a robot can do that and have that rotation of a hand and do that puja. So it's incredible what you're building. And I hope more people get inspired by this thing. Because I see a lot of robotics activity in the college phase and college competition stage. But I don't see that getting reflected in a startup ecosystem. What do you think is lacking maybe that is not helping these talented students who are interested in the space to convert into maybe founders who are doing startups in the space?
I think there's a lot of fear.
Okay.
It's like once you stop operating for fear, that's the part where you should be doing a startup.
Okay.
And a lot of startup founders I have known are, they kind of see this. They are fearless.
Okay.
They're not trying to follow the path of least resistance.
Okay.
Having said that, I think, if your question is towards hard tech, it's just this idea, we have to start thinking in a very different way, right? Like, we have to put our ideas together instead of getting what is available to you or, going and get a job. I mean, I don't see a problem in getting a job ever. There's so many companies which are trying to build things now.
Right.
You should definitely go and work for one of them.
Exactly.
This is what I feel. But I think, once we get rid of this fear, you'll go homeless or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the time. Sharma ji ka ladka kya kar raha hai? All those things. I mean, I've heard so much of that. I've kind of become very immune now. Until me or people at Orangewood don't go hungry, we'll keep building.
That's an amazing mindset.
Yeah. Or maybe we'll miss few meals, but we'll still build it.
That's awesome. That's a mindset that's required. And I think there is also maybe a lack in the inspiration point of view as well, especially for Indian startups, because maybe in the US we have SpaceX, there is Tesla, there are hard tech companies that are being built there, they're popular, they're listed, right? In India, we don't see those many examples of that kind of stuff happening, or maybe they're not that as popular, right? So I hope that Orangewood Labs kind of becomes the next Paytm or the next Flipkart story of India, so that it can be an example that, okay, these industries can also produce great outcomes, and most importantly, be highly impactful in how we live our lives.
Absolutely, that's the aim. There's obviously the mission of the company. And then there are certain things which need to be commercial in the short term. Trying to do both is extremely hard, but we're trying.
That's awesome. And I think you have operations both in India and the US.
Yes.
So I would like you to compare how's the ecosystem here, especially for deep tech startups, operating in India and operating in the US. Which one do you think has a more welcoming or more suitable environment to build startups like these from different perspectives, from the perspective of funding, from the perspective of the talents that are there, from the perspective of resources, capital being one of them. So can you contrast the two ecosystems for us?
Yeah, so I think for us, and I'd start with the part where where I had to shut down my company. One of the biggest factors there was hey, I don't have 1.5 lakh rupees now,
right,
to survive for the next few months while I build the next version. I remember at the time we at Orangewood, and Orangewood, there's another story to it. We'll come to that.
Right.
But I remember I was on the phone with one of our investors who had seen our demo day video, and on with that phone call, I think there was a 10-minute phone call. He said, "I know everything about you guys.
Okay.
I want to put a 10K check."
Okay. And
that was it. I think it was a 6 minutes call or something. I had tears in my eyes at that time. I did not even meet this guy till I think I met him online now, few months back.
Okay. So this is an Indian investor?
He was born in India but now works in the US.
Okay.
Now he's in Canada but was working in the US for a while.
Super early stage at that time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was a demo day video. So YC demo day is 3 minutes.
Yeah,
you used to go on a stage. Now they do it differently, but at that time there was a physical demo day where you'll go on stage, you'll just do a small pitch with your co-founders, and then they'll just reach out to you.
Right.
That's how it happens.
Awesome.
And I had tears in my eyes, 7 years of hard work. You had to shut down everything. And here, after just making a 3-minute pitch, people are just calling you up to give you money.
Right.
To work on your ideas. I was just surprised. It kind of became very clear that, you have to be here.
Right.
You've wasted so much of time trying to chase investors all your life. And then over here, the effort was much lower. The bar was much lower.
Right.
So, and there's this talk about being a mature ecosystem. I think Bay Area is one of the biggest mature ecosystems out there. There's not, your effort to raise that money is lower, and that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Right. And, I can argue about like why it is also necessary, because, even if you're not an investor in Uber, you still use it. Right. Even if it's, there's a talk about, okay, it's not profitable, but yeah, I think the investors have made a lot of money, and then I think retail investors will, end of the day, make money. But the point is, like, world is a better place because of a company like Uber.
Very true.
And this is what we need to, this is what I think founders need to keep fighting for. It's very, very hard when you're not one of them. You're not seeing from their perspective.
Right.
So I love my country a lot, but, I think we need to go, there needs to be something done for, getting to that level of, ease of, frictionless business.
Yeah. Ease of doing business.
Yeah.
Exactly. I totally agree. And I even host a VC podcast, which is called VC 10X. And there I talk to a lot of VCs. And I've talked to VCs from India, from US. In the US VCs, I've seen a common mindset, which is similar to what you're stating here. So a lot of them are actually actively tracking the startups that are coming out of Y Combinator, right? They're looking at that and they're seeing which are the most promising ones, which are the ones we should talk to. So that stuff is happening. I think now even Indian investors have started to track YC startups especially, but not just in YC. So the top quality investors are actually actively chasing the most interesting startups. They are reaching out. They're doing that stuff. Even if you have on your LinkedIn, you've listed, I'm a stealth founder, you're going to get DMs from some investors that, what are you building now? Because they want to come in super early. They want to listen to your idea and back you in some way, right? And early stage has that, advantage that you can come in early with a smaller check. You have that advantage later on. Obviously, there'll be markups on that. So it's much safer than maybe later stage, but that's debatable. But still, and I think Indian ecosystem is obviously can't be compared to the US ecosystem, still very early, but I think we are getting there. I think it's much better than when you were raising.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right now. Absolutely. I think there is a lot more respect when people talk to me versus when I was doing Evomo. I really want to see, companies coming just out of India, doing something really big globally.
Right.
I'm very excited to see, companies like Aether Energy, Idea Forge.
Exactly.
Atomberg, doing some amazing stuff in, the hard tech, consumer, space.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when we talk about artificial intelligence, the poster boy is always a robot, right? You always see a robot. So how do you think these two are related or unrelated? And for what you're building, the robots and the arms, how relevant is artificial intelligence? Of course, you can tell you exactly what it needs to do, but then the role of artificial intelligence is to develop on that, to learn on its own. So how do you see that aspect coming into the robotics space?
I think we've started scratching the surface.
Okay.
On self-learning robots. There are certain things which we have observed in, while playing with generative AI in our own lab.
Right.
Where it's able to do things which it was not programmed to do.
Okay.
But it was able to follow certain logics which we did not program them from the beginning, but it was maybe either able to self-learn or maybe download things from the internet to understand what it was supposed to do.
Right.
We believe that this is going to happen much sooner than later. At least from a technology or a research point of view, we are getting there. From an industry point of view, there are things which I believe that most people are not even trying yet. Orangewood is in a very unique position. We believe that, whatever research we are doing, we should be able to help industry right then and there. And for that, we are very focused on that part instead of actually solving problems which are good for writing research papers, which is, by the way, also necessary.
Right.
But then I do feel like we could be doing so much better if, let's say, researchers were solving industrial problems.
Right.
Which is kind of not happening at this point of time.
Okay.
Yeah. But then we're definitely trying to do that. And AI it just opens up so many things for us.
Yeah.
Like earlier, the robot programming used to be so hard. Now we do have things like we generate code on like one click of a button.
Yeah.
Or even make robot do things based on, a text or a voice-based prompt.
Right.
That itself, like we've done stuff where two robots are collaborating with each other with just one prompt.
Right.
So we kind of seeing, what, like the intelligent, like human kind of intelligent behavior.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we've just started like that long, exciting and dangerous journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I saw something called RoboGPT on your website.
Yes.
So what's it? Tell us more about it.
So RoboGPT is our own, our own program, which basically lets robots to program themselves to perform a task.
Okay.
Now, robot, and if you especially talk about robotic arms,
Right.
The programming is really hard.
Yeah.
There are very less number of people who can do robot programming
Right.
in the world. And they are again expensive and rare. So that's why in countries like US or in the US, you don't find people who are even robot programmers.
Okay.
And the reason for that is like it has been built in a certain way where most OEMs were not really interested in like making programming easy.
Right.
It served their purpose for a very long time.
Right.
Obviously, it's no longer the thing which really works for them anymore. But then those standards were built like back in the 70s and the 80s.
Right.
What we are trying to say is that, hey, and we are really inspired by what sci-fi, showed us about the robot.
Yeah.
Right, Rosie the robot, then, all those robots in Star Wars, they actually understood natural language. They understood
Right.
human language.
Right.
Or what human was supposed to do. And we were really inspired by that. But then when it comes to robot programming, none of those things are true. Robot programming, like programming industrial robots, even this day, is like programming a computer back in the 80s.
Okay.
Or even harder. One of the things is like the robot math is hard, right? You have like these 6 joints and then you need to be in space. You need to know what every rotation is.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of math involved. But then there are parts of the traditional OEM industry where they want to keep it that way.
Okay.
What we are saying is, that, the robot needs to be like the next smartphone, right? Smartphones in the past, 13 years have changed our lives in such a way that we can't imagine our lives without them.
Very true.
And that's true for like half the humanity at this point of time.
Right.
We haven't never seen computing embedding so deep into human civilization, what we're seeing with smartphones. And what we're trying to achieve now is, if we can have this as easy to program or as easy to do stuff the
Right.
same way, you could use a smartphone to call a cab or, order food.
Right.
Right? What if I can tell it, hey, just make coffee for me in 6 a.m. in the morning, and then it makes me that, and then maybe, some breakfast. If it's able to figure out those things.
Yeah.
If it's able to do everything else as I want it to do. And if I have this working in my factory, if it's able to work alongside other robots, where I could just give it like a high level context to what it needs to build or what kind of production targets it needs to meet.
Right.
If I am able to do that, that would be magical.
Exactly.
And then if you compound it all over humanity, I think we'll reach the next level because of the robots.
Very true. Yeah, I totally agree. And, one important question that's always posed when it comes to robotics and artificial intelligence is, are robots going to replace humans?
I mean, it will replace humans where, humans no longer want to do those jobs.
Okay.
Right? Labor should be optional.
Very true.
And it's coming from, and, this is something which I've always questioned myself. But, once you go and work in a factory, and, I've got like this so many times, okay, robots are going to replace us. And then, my question always is, have you worked in a place where robot is going to replace you? And most people actually don't understand how hard it is to do hard labor.
Yeah.
Especially the younger generation, they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And that's how it should have been for us. Like labor should have always been an option, not like something which you have to do.
Yeah.
And most industries where we work, most of our customers, we have found like workers coming up to us telling us, hey, could you teach me how to use this?
Right.
So basically, even for them, it's like not the things which they want to do. Like most blue-collared workers, they don't want their children to do this. Even they are trying to look for something else which they can do with their lives.
Yeah. That's a good point of view, but maybe has a privileged side to it, to having that mindset, because there is a huge chunk of population that's still being employed, just trying to find any kind of work. And I agree with you on that part, that there are hazardous industries where humans should not be working, right? And I definitely think we should use robots in that case. But what I am seeing is that we are actually also getting to a point where even if humans want to do that job, the company who is making the hires, they are optimizing for cost effectiveness, right? They will choose to hire a robot instead, or maybe an AI agent. What we are seeing with ChatGPT and these AI models in the software side of things. In the hardware side of things, maybe we'll start seeing for robots as well. So that's what I'm trying to ask you, that is that mass scale of replacement of humans going to take place?
So most times what we have seen is the jobs are changing instead of like being replaced.
Okay.
And in developed nations, it's extremely hard to find a blue-collar worker.
Okay.
Our proposition to most of our customers is just that, you'll probably end up hiring more people.
Right.
And what we've seen with automation is like until and unless you get to like full automation, like 100%, you'll end up creating bottlenecks. And those bottlenecks have to be done by humans. So in the shorter term, you actually have to hire more humans to keep up with the robots.
Right.
And then what we believe is, and this is as a company, our philosophy has been to make the robots as easy to program.
Right.
But it still has to be done by a human.
Okay.
What we are saying is that yes, what if all of those people are enabled by robots who are doing those jobs?
Right.
Because they actually know their jobs well.
Right.
A painter, like we have actually consulted with painters while we were building our painting programs.
They'll be required for training, no question about that.
Absolutely. And then the total output actually becomes much more. Very high level, I think the world's output is going to be much more when we have more robots, and then we will figure out an economic way to, have like more humans employed in more creative industries.
Right. Yeah, maybe a solution like universal basic income, something like
Absolutely.
that. Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. And let's talk about the challenges that you faced while, of course, you talked about your previous journey and the challenges you faced there. So now in your second innings, as we can say, what have been the biggest challenges? Because you had your learnings from the first innings as well, from the first time when you started up, didn't work out, a ton of learnings there. Because as you say, right, when you fail, you take those learnings seriously. But if you succeed, those learnings kind of get ignored and, get sidelined. So I think those learnings would be very fresh for you. So can you share some of those learnings that you gained out of that first experience as well, and also the biggest challenges you faced in the second time when you started Orangewood Labs as well?
Okay, so biggest learning, I think I was trying to... One of the things which I understood after shutting down Evomo was the fact, like this idea of regulatory capture. Right? There are times when you have regulations, you have laws which kind of prevent certain things from happening because those laws were, written by people who had like groups of, that they had interest of certain groups which they had to satisfy.
Right.
And, at Evomo, my thing was like, I'm going to do it 100% legal. But for doing everything legal, which basically meant that I had to go through the same standards for automotive safety as, let's say, someone like Suzuki has to go through.
Very true.
Which should have been happening in that way. But what I feel what I should have done was to like find out a way, like find out something which gets my product on the roads first, somehow, and then go for that.
Okay.
Right? I was not ready for it at that time. And what I've seen now is, if a company like Uber, they were illegal to begin with.
Okay.
right? They were getting notices from San Francisco Transportation Agency all the time.
Okay.
They were threatened with jail, cease and desist, everything you can think of under the legal purview.
Right.
But they kept, protesting. They started like getting their customers to organize against, the transportation agency, and then the government finally had to give in.
Got it.
And what I feel is that's something which I should have done, right?
Okay.
I think now we need to decide like what all the things you need to do. What are the must-haves?
Right.
What are the things you're not ready to ever compromise on? And what do you need to survive?
Okay.
And your long-term goals can look very different from what you're doing right now. And that is fine.
Okay.
And these are some of the lessons.
What's an example of that?
It's one of those things where, like for Evomo, right? The thing was like, okay, if I have to make it 100% legal, and then only I'm going to sell it. But making it 100% legal required a lot of money for certifications, which I did not have.
Right.
But I actually had the money to build.
Right. Okay.
Right. But then, because I was stuck in this loop for a very long time as an idealist 26-year-old, I would not do these things.
Okay.
Not build the next version.
Okay.
Before I have the money for the certification or to get certain things. So,
but
I think
there's still that risk that if you still build it, it might still not work out and you also lost the money. That's also a possibility there.
But again, it's much better than, regret.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Got it.
Like the idea that, okay, what if you had served like 10 customers? Their families would have actually done better with what I had built.
Right.
Like just that satisfaction I could never get.
Yeah.
And as someone who's been put like 7 years of my life, like in my 20s, it actually matters, right? If it would have got somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally agree. And that story of when Evomo didn't work out, it kind of failed. You came back to India. So tell us about that phase. How hard was it? What were the experiences? In India especially, we have a society as well that also has its own reactions to things because they're always going to say, okay, we told you that, right? And you still didn't listen, right? And then eventually going on this path again, you initially told you wanted the thrill of motorsport, but eventually came to the thrill of doing startups. So tell us about that experience when you came back to India. What was it like?
No, so for Evomo, I was in India. I was in Ahmedabad.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I went, like I was so broke that obviously my parents had to take me in.
Okay.
So I was in Delhi. I was consulting for a bit. It was actually a fun project, but I think I was depressed because I was not doing something too hard. And, it was one of those phases where, you've basically worked something really hard for a very long time.
Absolutely.
And then you're not sure what to do next. And I was consulting for a bit and I was depressed and I was just putting on weight because obviously there was food which was not just bananas. And I was just sleeping, I think, 12 hours a day, which was crazy. And I think my parents also kind of got bored. One thing was like I was facing a lot of resistance, right? Like,
okay.
I think we're just trying to live up to some other people's happiness, right? Like someone in the society, some uncle who doesn't approve of you.
Yeah, true.
And it's like that uncle kind of decides what I'll do with my life. It's very hard to understand that part from, where I was coming from.
Right.
There were times when, like, I'd missed out like on a lot of things in my life because I was so broke. I missed out so many weddings from my best friend because I did not have the train ticket to go to maybe Calcutta or Bhubaneswar or anywhere.
Right.
Or I did not have the balls to actually show up and say, hey, I'm so broke. I don't know what I'm doing. It was one of those things where, but what I know is like, I did not want to actually face them and then get comfortable with this idea that, you're doing something wrong. Because in my head, I haven't done anything wrong.
Right.
People deserve better. I was the only person who could have done it at that point of time. And that problem is still not solved. You do see jugars and, those chakra things. People still die. I think India has like the maximum number of people who die in road accidents. We actually lose 2% of our GDP.
Right.
Right. So I don't see this as anything wrong.
Yeah.
So I don't want anyone else to tell me that I was doing something wrong or they have more money than I have. Like, I don't actually care about this. And I'm just tired of like hanging out with people who are conformists.
Okay.
It's like, it just doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect me, sit with me in the right way.
Right.
I'll probably like run out of that conversation. And this is what I think I'm seen as like someone who's too antisocial, but that's not true. I just want to hang out with people who are very ambitious.
Yeah.
And for me, you still have to like align everyone around it, right? You are getting so much of pessimism from everywhere else. Like, it's like when you go out, it's like, it's like pessimism from everywhere else,
right.
And you still have to like wade through this because you have to build the next thing. It's extremely hard. But yeah, I think with time you learn this.
Yeah.
You don't give in. That's the thing.
Absolutely. And I respect you for that. That entire journey is remarkable. And I'm glad that the thing that you're doing now is inspiring many people out there. And to ask you this question, you are a technical person at its core. Your education is in the technical background, how to build things, right? Hard stuff, and business is somewhat different, right? So do you think that, did you experience any kind of difficulty in understanding the business aspects of things, that maybe it took some time for you to learn those things? How was that experience like?
Yeah, it's been eye-opening. That's what I'll say, right? I'm like one of those people who live in their idealist world.
Okay.
And, obviously the world doesn't work like that, right? Like I said, you have to be out in the world where you're just surrounded by pessimism. Some of those pessimist people are also your customers. So you have to talk their language.
Yeah.
And yes, building is hard, right?
Yeah.
You are obviously thinking so much ahead of your time that it's very hard for you to actually start making money off something which is more futuristic.
Right.
Because I think, there was this famous quote by Henry Ford, where it's like, people just wanted a faster horse.
Yeah.
You basically build a faster, more obedient human. And it sometimes becomes hard to like convince people around it. Though where we are sitting right now, it's actually not, we've actually, like, people kind of understand, okay, they need a robot, but they don't understand, what it takes to actually put it on the line.
Right.
And we're trying to bridge that gap.
Right.
We want to make it such that, hey, the moment, like, the way you get a smartphone in a box, what if you could get a robot in a box?
Right.
Which just works out of the box. You can do it, set it up yourself, and you probably have to, like, maybe call us once or twice in the robot's lifetime.
Okay.
Like, so that's where we want to get to. This is what people think robot will do. It's not there yet.
Okay.
And for all of that, for the business, for the robot business to work, all of those things need to happen, even though it can be happening in a very narrow way.
Yeah.
So I think we're approaching it narrowly. But yes, I think within a couple of months, we will have like a few leaps because of generative AI.
Right.
And those leaps will able to, help us get to a point where we can just send a robot in a box, and within, let's say, a 1 hour call with us, any customer will be able to set it up for certain use cases and then make it work on its own.
Yeah.
Yeah. And apart from that, I think, there are like so many things. I'm like, because the culture in India is like, usually customers don't pay up front.
Yeah.
I was so afraid of asking even my US customers up front.
Yeah.
I think I still don't do it enough. Like, I'm like, okay, no, let me make everything work for you, and then I'll charge you this amount of money.
Right.
I think that is a part which, personally, it needs to change for me. Yeah. And, I mean, there are so many things to it.
Yeah.
A lot of founders I know, they are much better than, communicating this part to the world than I am. Like, how good we are doing, or how crazy this thing can become. What the potential is, I don't think I'm there yet.
The things that you mentioned, they hint at a very interesting future. What I can see is maybe a robot in every house, and you can use it as a personal assistant to do a bunch of small tasks. It can do the cleaning for you. We already have cleaning robots. They don't look like robots per se, but they're like small stuff, and they're programmed, and they can clean the house for you. So I certainly see that thing happening. So how do you look at the future? Let's talk about Orangewood Labs. We are more focused on the industry side of things, the use cases. But businesses would like to pay for because it's a business, right? But if we look at the broader spectrum of robotics, how do you see the world changing with robotics coming in and coupled with AI? What's the world looking like maybe 15, 20 years from now? Is that the timeline we can look at?
Yeah, I think, see, it's one of those things where, every new technology comes and shapes the world in a certain way.
Yeah.
It shapes the consumer behavior in a certain way.
Yeah.
And it fundamentally changes everything, right? That's one of those things which any technology which is very foundational. Working with our hands is very foundational to what humans can do.
Right.
But then there are so many things which we are now able to do, which we were not able to do, let's say, even 30 or 40 years back, which are now done by machines and we don't even care about it.
Yeah.
So, things like washing machine, right? For most of the human timeline, people have, like, whenever we start wearing clothes, we've started washing them, and washing has always happened with hands.
Right.
But now most people don't, like, at least most people in the developed nations or developing nations, we don't actually hand wash our clothes anymore.
Very true.
This has happened, but this just happened in background. We kind of forget about it. Like, it becomes ubiquitous.
Yeah, we don't consider it a robot, right?
Exactly, like a phone, right?
Yeah.
Phone has so many things, which used to be so many other devices.
Yeah.
But yeah, all those things happen kind of naturally.
Yeah.
So and this is, I think, one of those new aspects about the technology, which is like so human-centric, where we don't feel their presence.
Yeah.
We just kind of get their gains.
Very true.
And what we feel is like, this is what robots are going to bring in the next 2 to 3 decades. What Orangewood is trying to do right now is to build that foundation, build that infrastructure layer on which the new industries of the next generation are going to be built.
Right.
We want to see what the McDonald's of 2026 is going to look like. What are they going to do? Like, imagine, doing things which were being done by humans, like every other aspect. What would happen there?
Right.
It's that quest of, understanding and kind of get like the first row seat, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
That kind of brings the biggest joy and to me, yeah.
Abhinav, it's been amazing visiting you. Thank you for inviting me over here. And it's been inspiring for myself. And I hope this episode inspires many people who are viewing this to do more of hard stuff, as you call it, and not fear as much as we do as Indians or as aspiring founders, to take that leap and do their thing, right? And hope it works out and have that resilience in them like you do, to face through the challenges, fall and then get back up again, try again and then win, right? Thank you for doing this, Abhinav. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. And for people who want to learn more about Orangewood and maybe follow your journey further, where can they follow you and maybe visit your website to maybe work with you?
So we have a website, it's orangewood.co.
Okay.
We are also very active on Twitter/X. You can find me on Twitter. You can find Orangewood on Twitter. One of the good things which I like about our Twitter page is that we kind of we want to like show off like what we have been doing, and
it's very inspiring.
Exactly. This is what I feel, and I've got like so many inspiring messages after kids who want to do things. Again, the reason why you build it, like for the short term, this really helps us to be encouraged, and this feeling that we might be doing something right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this was the first like in-person episode of Founder 10X, and also the first long-form episode that we're doing, and I hope that more are going to follow with inspiring founders like you. So thank you for watching, and please hit subscribe for more episodes like this. Thank you.